Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Utah Permaculture Collective Monday night live stream. This is also doubling as another episode of the Permanent Culture Podcast. As all of us are experiencing, this current pandemic has kind of changed the format of the Permaculture Collective and our work. Usually what we would do here at Salton Studios, big thanks to Sam Garfield for editing this for us and making this capability of reaching the community. Super grateful for that. We would usually have our gatherings here and potluck together and then have our presenter on for an episode of the Permanent Culture Podcast afterwards. And now we're just kind of all smushing it together and keeping these Monday night live streams going so that we can bring this crucial information of the story of how we're bringing a regenerative mindset and bringing a permanent culture into our communities, needed now more than ever, I think. And I'm really grateful to be here tonight with Barbarella Roller, who is a really good friend of mine and is someone who has been organizing and gardening her tail off and has a lot of background in all of this. And I'm grateful to have you here tonight, Barbarella. Thank you. Yeah. A couple things we like to keep kind of consistent with the culture that we've built through this group. Our mission, if you don't know us, is to cultivate a permanent culture of healthy, resilient communities living in harmony with nature. And that mission means that we're telling the story. We're showing examples of the people and the places and the things that are happening in our community that are leading to that more beautiful world that our hearts certainly know is possible. Sometimes our minds can lose sight of it, especially with all of the negativity and the understandable anxiety that's going on right now in our culture. But it's also a really huge opportunity for us to reset and to think deeply about the things that matter most to us and to find a more beautiful way forward. And so really grateful to have Barbarella here. Something that we often do with our permaculture collective, first of all, we always acknowledge the indigenous land that we're on as the spirit of truth-telling. This is absolutely, we are on Ute, Paiute, Goshute, and Shoshone land, and we appreciate that fact as a collective and just want to make sure to have that truth-telling in our broadcasts and as a culture that we build together. Another thing we often do is some people are new to permaculture, and I love to have the opportunity with my guests or with people that are coming to our gatherings when we ever get to have them again. What is the definition? What does permaculture mean? And there might be a few classic short definitions, but also every time you ask someone who's familiar with it, they kind of often drop into their heart space and share what it's meant for them and what they like to communicate about it. So I'd like to give Barbarella that opportunity tonight as my guest, and maybe let's kind of start there. How would you define permaculture to someone who might be new to it?
Well, permaculture to me is a way for people to reconnect with natural systems around them. It's a way to create resiliency inside of your household as well as your neighborhood, and to create a rewilding of sorts where you realize that you're connected to everything around you and not separate from it. I think that's one of the most important things that the observation that comes from permaculture does for me.
Beautiful. Great definition. One simple one, if you're feeling like overwhelmed with the broad scope of what it means to get involved in this lifestyle and this paradigm, is just it's a conscious design science for harmonious human settlement. Is like the smallest sentence I've been able to find to hang on to, but it's great to hear all the different perspectives, because really, if we're going to shift human culture effectively and take this opportunity to evolve together and bring these deep traditional ecological wisdoms and knowledge to the forefront, and to really think about how to partner with nature instead of being kind of controlling and dominant like we usually see in culture, we're going to need to collectively define it, embrace it, talk about it, and bring those elements into play. So grateful for all of that. In this process, I just appreciate Barbarella being here. We've been dreaming up something together over the last week and a half or so that we think it's really, really important right now to be safely and yet dedicatedly helping increase the urban organic food supply for our communities, not just here in the Valley, but of course, hopefully people all over the world are catching that hint that a lot of this, a lot of what's going on right now is that direct call to get closer to nature and to provide that kind of resilience and nutrition that our communities are essential, that we need it, right? And I'm excited to delve into that topic. I also want to get to know you more, Barbarella, because you've done some really awesome things in our community, and I want to kind of hear your story a little bit. So we met back, I think, originally with the Jenk Stars. Yeah, start wherever you want. Tell us about yourself.
Well, the Jenk Stars is a really awesome collective based mostly out of Salt Lake City. We've got tribe all over in California and Colorado as well. And it's a community of people that come together and really just want to spread art and awareness of sustainable, conscious living systems and permaculture. So we throw a couple of events every year, from Building Man and Melon Nights. And even though those are actually just got canceled, but just bringing together to teach them about sustainable living. We love to teach people how to work with solar. We love to teach people how to work with alternative buildings, different types of ways to live off the grid, and add a little bit of art and fun in there as well, music and art. So, and we met working at the Jenk Star Castle, which is a community center that we had here in town for a while, with a lot of educational programs.
And sustainable living, right? I love those acronyms. They're like, yes, they did it.
Yeah, we love the acronyms. But yeah, we were doing I think it started with the air protectors probably. You guys were looking for a space and we collaborated on that. It was pretty cool.
Did you see how just recently the air protectors, we raised, I think, close to $27,000 for the Navajo and Hopi Nation right now during the pandemic? Did you catch that?
No, that's amazing.
That just happened over the last, yeah, so the Navajo Nation is in the southern part of the state, and they're really hit hard with the pandemic and the shutdowns, and it's really difficult for them to like receive the stimulus checks, and there's all kinds of stuff going on down there. And so we thought as a board, you know, let's do something to raise some money for them and to get some supplies down there. And we put a goal of $2,500, and like within 24 hours it was over 10 grand, and I think it's getting close to $28,000 now.
Awesome.
So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, sorry to shift gears like that, but
I'm
really grateful to see that, like, you know, for me, I think it's really impressive that our communities are a lot more conscious of being better neighbors and being better partners to our Indigenous allies, right? And seeing when they're struggling to have this kind of outpouring, that was just really inspiring. So I'm glad it's happening.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So a part of what I want to do too, as we're delving into history and dreaming about the future together, is we are live streaming throughout this. And if there's people that, like, you have an incredible depth of gardening knowledge. I also been gardening for a while, and I think it'd be good also to kind of open that up. If there's people commenting or have questions about any of the specific things we start bringing up, we've got our engineer Sam's kind of watching the comments as they come in, and feel free to kind of interrupt us if there's something that's relevant to what we're talking about. We'd love to communicate with the outside world during this as well. Okay, so lately, I know you've been a part of the Utah Arts Alliance in the last few years.
Yeah.
And you've got, I mean, you recently did that pandemic festival, which I think a lot of people caught on with. And yeah, how's that been for you? What's going on over there?
It's really interesting. The Utah Arts Alliance, a lot of the things we do are public facing. And so we are currently, I feel like, pretty ahead of the curve on finding different ways to incorporate working with the community online. I think that there's a big call for that right now, to figure out ways that we can still connect people in a meaningful way, which was also what we did with the Pandemic Festival. Just finding ways to support artists, get their work out there so other people can enjoy it and contribute to them as well, because the art community has been hit incredibly hard with this pandemic. Most people inside of the art community, whether it be sound engineers, performers, stage crew, people that own venues, all of those people rely on group events, including the Utah Arts Alliance. All of our things are our gallery, our Dreamscapes installation, our festivals that we throw, Urban Arts Festival and Illuminate, like those things are all on the chopping block this year if we can all get together. So how do we, as a nonprofit arts organization, still do our duty to share art and foster art in the community. And we've been working on, we've just got our gallery, our Urban Arts Gallery online, which is really cool. And we're working on getting a live stream of our Dreamscapes installations so that you can go through and have a virtual tour. So there's more things coming down the pipeline. You should definitely follow Utah Arts Alliance online because we've got some fun things coming. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's been really hard hitting, especially in the arts community, and it's been hard on the political community too. Like, as you know, I'm running for county mayor right now, and like I had a whole lot of beautiful events lined up throughout the summer of community partners that wanted to support me, and it's kind of been like, well, what the heck do we do now to galvanize and move things around? So awesome to hear the virtual tour that you're doing, and you know, it really seems like technology is probably, at least in one area, is probably going to jump leaps and bounds over the following months as all these artists and creatives try to create more of an engaging experience for people in their homes, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can imagine a lot happening, and it's been fun watching all the elders get familiar with Zoom and their tech and, you know, coming in and out of that. I think it's pretty inspiring to see those tools that are at least kind of helping bridge that gap. Did you see that thing that James Loomis did, the calendar to raise funds for essential workers that
Yeah. Guns and cigars. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Men with Guns and Cigars was a local effort to make a calendar that people can buy to support essential workers, and it's amazing to see all the creativity that's in place. So. Great, and I guess is the radio station for Arts Alliance, is that,
oh yeah,
is that up and running too?
KUAA, our radio station run by the Utah Arts Alliance, produced by Brad Wheeler. It is on 99.9, and we've got a lot of useful information right now. We've been working really hard doing some PSAs and getting resources available and putting it out there so that people can keep informed. We've talked a lot. Brad is really dedicated to making sure that people feel comforted and unified during this time. So we're working really hard to make sure that we can get as much information, good information out on the radio as possible. And plus, it's just an awesome radio station. The music on there is so fun. It's different than anything else you'll hear on the radio. So it's definitely something to check out. It's always in my car.
Awesome.
And you can stream online as well, actually. So
great. Yeah, follow the Utah Arts Alliance. I love it. Let's dive a little deeper into this topic of resiliency. You know, I'm kind of feeding you a question here, but would you say there's been an increase in interest in gardening and farming since this pandemic's been going on?
Yes, sir. My inboxes, every single form of communication you can possibly imagine is blowing up all day long with people asking me questions. I have a personal thing where if somebody hits me up and asks me about gardening or farming techniques, I want to give them that information. I feel like there's something really powerful about a person-to-person connection that you can't get off of just learning something on YouTube or on Google. So I really want to connect with all these people and help them out, but it definitely, the influx has been incredible, and it's intimidating and stressful, and also the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me. So like, yeah. I love that we're getting things organized so that we can help everybody out, and I love that people are getting engaged with growing their own food. It's been a passion of mine forever, and I love that people finally have the time to do it, and I think that we should just do it all the way, guys.
Okay,
let's
so
just do it.
We're going to grow some food all the way, and let's do it.
Let's do it all the way.
You taught me a lot about worms, about composting worms. I think you did a workshop at one of the Building Man, or did you? I think you did. I think you did. And you taught me about, you're like, don't get so technical with it, just dig a pit and feed them some straw and some soil and do it right. And I've actually really loved my worm pit in my backyard for coming on since you taught me 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
It's delightful.
They survive the winter just fine. I just stick a hay bale on top of them, give them a really solid feeding, and then come back in the spring and they're going crazy. So yeah, you've been guiding people on this a long time. How long have you been gardening and just interested in all that?
You know, I grew up in a household that was a single parent household, and we didn't have a lot of money, and so we planted a garden, and then my older brother started working at a nursery, and that really pumped it into gear for us. When he was 16, he started working in a nursery, and that really taught us a lot of things from just him working in that space, and it just is something that's followed me ever since. That was part of my chores growing up, was going out and harvesting food for dinner. So when I kind of resented it when I was a kid, and then when I got older and people started, you got a little older, people started gardening, I'm like, oh, I know how to do all that stuff. Yeah, I'll show you, and then it rekindled a little passion for me that I can't stop, won't stop,
Yeah. I tell you, well, I don't know when it was, maybe 3-ish weeks ago, right as the pandemic was really starting to the news of it was just getting kind of overwhelming. Not only did I find out that my wife was pregnant right at that moment, but also digging into that first garden bed in the spring in my backyard and just taking the few hours to just be there by myself, pulling the mulch back, touching that soil, feeding it, pulling out the digging fork and getting it ready. It was like a transcendental moment, just smelling that soil and having that peace and the sun and the nature around me. And I like to remind people this isn't just some cosmic punishment that we're now growing our food and learning how to garden. It's also one of the most healthy, resilient, powerful acts of solidarity that we can take in our culture a month ago and today, and I just love that it's just starting to rekindle and really get going strong for people. That's great.
Yeah, I don't even know what I would do right now if I didn't have the dirt. It's been keeping me grounded. It's been giving me something to do every day and get excited about and get out of bed. And every day I go out and see all the new sprouts that are coming in and go check out on my baby starts and go look at my worm pile and try to find the teeniest, tiniest worm that I can, and those things are really keeping my heart afloat right now, honestly, and everyone in my household. So I definitely want to get that in for other people, give that to other people as well, because it's been an invaluable gift for me.
Yeah, an image of an umbilical cord almost to the grounding of it's been huge for me too. It's been my solution to mental health for 8 years now of just knowing that that's kind of the direction to go. So we get our therapy, we get our outdoor time, we get our physical activity, and we're growing food for our communities, which I think not to I always want to take the love and the passion-based angle whenever we're talking about stuff like this, but it also whether you I've seen a lot of articles lately talking about disruptions in the food chain as being a real possibility, and it's hard to get to the bottom of anything super specifically these days. It's really kind of this post-truth world of how do we source and vet things and whatever, but just feel into your heart. And I think most people would recognize that if everybody's panicked about everything right now, that likely a lot of industries are going to be struggling, and these articles probably have some truth to them, that there's going to be some difficulties in the same level of commercial food production that we're accustomed to. And so what better response than to organize and really increase the food supply? A couple things I want to touch on. One is why isn't this being talked about enough by the perceived authorities in our culture? Why aren't our religious institutions and our governmental institutions and our local leadership, why isn't it just why aren't solutions just flying out of the woodwork, right? Because, I don't know, that's something. And then also, well, let's start there, okay? Sometimes I feel crazy. I know that a lot of people going through this collectively, there's those days where it's just I don't know if I can, this is so different, and this is it's a slow day for me, right? And when I'm in my down points, it's why are we working so hard to organize for our communities and do all this, and why isn't there a single blip of support on that top-down authoritarian thing that we're usually have some kind of leadership? If this had happened 70 years ago in this country, everyone would be gardening, I think. I really think they would. And we're not seeing that now to any extent. And so are we crazy? Right? It makes me feel crazy sometimes.
I ask myself that question all the time. But then, I was a farmer in Northern California for 10 years, and I am very much aware of how much of the farming and all of our food supply that comes from there, which is a large percentage of food supply for us here in Utah, how much of that is dependent on migrant workers, and how those migrant workers aren't going to be able to come into California. And so I don't think it's reactionary or dramatic at all to say that we're going to have a disruption in our food chain that is going to surprise people. And I think that as people who are forward thinking in ways of permaculture and food supply, food chains and growing your own food, I think that maybe we are, and because our government entities are so reactionary right now and are dealing with so many issues and so many different angles of this thing and trying to figure it out, I don't think that they're even if they are slightly aware of that situation, I don't even know if they have the wherewithal to handle it until it's closer to their face. You know, it's like way back here right now, and they have to wait until it's farther up in the line to even deal with it. So I think that being proactive like we are is the best thing to do. I mean, when I first started seeing people hoarding food in the grocery store, I went home and just planted seeds. You know, everybody else is hoarding canned food, and I'm like, oh man, we just have to start the garden really fast, you guys. We have to get as much food planted as we possibly can, and that's been the goal ever since. You know.
Yep. Appreciate that. It definitely helps me feel a little more sane with this. And you know, it's hard too, because like there's this. I always try not to reinvent the wheel. Like when you see a problem and you want to solve it, you lean on groups and existing infrastructure and leaders and try to work within that. And I think what I've found, at least with the Utah Permaculture Collective and the Air Protectors, the groups that I have more inner working knowledge of, we've built really powerful communities that want to support these kinds of activities, but not everybody all at the same time has the privilege, bandwidth, able-bodiedness to dive in and grow food right now and take it seriously now. And so I think that our efforts together to start this neighborhood resiliency initiative should be hopefully serve the existing groups that are out there and the communities that are out there as kind of this catching point for those that are like ready now to contribute and increase the food supply. Do you get a sense that that kind of like approach, like within your own communities, would you say that there could be some way to kind of tap that in and kind of identify by that point?
Yeah, I think so. I do. And I think that anybody that's been toe dipping or been interested in it, I think that we're creating a pretty cool, clear path for them to get plugged in as well. And hopefully we can really ignite some passion in some people and get people involved.
Great. I'm excited to talk more logistical about some of the ideas that I think will make sense and galvanize, and that seems to be happening. Really grateful that I did a call out about a week ago on Facebook, and I was like, you know what? We all want this to happen, and I know there's so many powerful people and creatives out there and people that want to see this, have the same vision in their heart. How do we pull from the woodwork and just like all work on it together, right? And it was great to have you step in and so many others, and we've been really cruising over the last few days getting this thing up and running. I think one thing I want to break through before we get more logistical is like this concern, and understandable concern, about this pandemic that's going on, and how do we organize safely and in a way that the public can really get fully behind in the midst of these understandable health and safety concerns. Tell me, if you could, what are your thoughts on that? Can it be done safely, and what things would you suggest we do?
Well, in my own neighborhood, I'm really lucky. I have a really awesome community center across the street. It's called the New Hope Neighborhood Community Center, and they have a bunch of community garden beds over there. And as this crisis has been unfolding, we decided to partner together and just look at our two properties as one, so that we could share our resources and work together to grow as much food as we possibly could. And so we have had volunteers coming in, we've had neighbors coming in to help, and it's been working out really well. I mean, people don't want to get too close to each other right now, so it kind of naturally keeps people apart. It's easy to make sure that people bring their own tools, or they wear gloves, or make sure that everybody's sanitizing and keeping pretty far apart. You know, it's like you go take these wheelbarrows of mulch over here, and you go over here and dig these beds, and you can keep people pretty separate, just kind of depending on the area you're in. But it seems like people have had a vested interest in participating and a vested interest in keeping themselves safe as well. So we haven't really experienced much issue with that as of yet.
Great.
So.
I've noticed a similar trend at the Krishna Food Forest and Farm, our community there that has about an acre space that we get to farm in, and it's been similar. You know, I remember last week when we got together. At one point, I had to yell across the field, "No hugging!" Right? Like there was like this almost hug about to happen. Like no, which was not something I ever expected to yell at my community at a Garden of Eden type environment, but that's the world we're in. So,
Yeah.
you know, we took 6-foot distancing really seriously, made sure activities that were happening were appropriate to the amount of people that could do that safely, and we sanitized our public tools. We just had little wipe downs before people would take them and use them. We had hand sanitizer there when people arrived for their first, you know, dive into the experience. And then, you know, it's also seeming like the air masks, wearing masks in public and in these events is becoming more recommended from LA to New York to other countries. It's like that's kind of the stage it is at too. And I think that's one thing that we're going to need some help with the Resiliency Initiative is to make sure we've got a supply of masks or make them or whatever, maybe get some donated so that our crews can have that extra level of protection. You know, that's one thing, right? So yeah, I think there is a way to do it, and it was also rewarding to see that the federal government, their definition of an essential worker would include people in the agricultural industry, and that is what we are doing and taking seriously. So we can do it safely. It is essential. We're not crazy to be organizing as community leaders. I don't think it makes sense to wait for Trump to decide that you know, there's something better than Big Macs out there. I think we can get to what we're doing now. So thank you for that support and for carrying that vision for the community. What are I don't know, maybe break down a little bit of like where you see potentially this going and why you're drawn to it. I think it would be cool to hear.
Man, the sky's the limit. I want people to know how. I want people to have the information, and I want people to have the confidence that they need to go and do this thing. I want people to understand that you can go out and you don't have to be a master gardener. You don't have to have a huge palatial garden going on in your backyard. Even if you have a container of tomatoes on your porch, that's going to bring you a lot of joy and it's going to bring you food. And so I'd love to see this be a scalable model where people can go big or they can just go small, and be able to have people to speak to, mentorships, hands if they need it, and all the information that they need to feel confident in moving forward in this. Because it really is just as simple and as hard as just putting seeds in the ground, you know?
Yep. I like that. So, you know, I think maybe hashing out some of the logistics for a minute sounds fun, because I think that the more people that use this platform they're serious about not only growing food, but coordinating alongside their community to grow food is kind of the purpose of this. And I think that we need help in 5 different areas. We need people that, first of all, are able-bodied and aren't sick and are willing to spend some time in the garden. So garden volunteers. We need people that have experience gardening. You could be all of these things, by the way, but people that have experience gardening so they can mentor. People that have properties and land available where gardening and farming could happen here in the city. And then also people that want to donate either physical resources or even financial resources to help their neighborhoods increase the food supply. And so if we can connect organizers with volunteers, with projects in their area, with the resources they need, I'm imagining something. I think we're all imagining something pretty well here where, oh, got a plot to do it. I'm going to engage my neighborhood, find the ones that want to help, pick a day and get it done, right? One thing about mentorship, like I appreciate that I think why we're really working on this together so much is you're seeing that added pressure of people coming through and needing that extra help. And, you know, it's just like when you're on some website and you have a live chat option while you're trying to figure out which boxes to click. It's so nice to have that human interaction, even if there is existing resources and we can Google and whatnot. What are some of the challenges and opportunities you see within like mentorship and education with this?
Well, as far as challenges go, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of making sure that, I mean, if we're a little bit more organized, it'd be nice if we have a set of people that want to mentor, because then we can allocate a certain amount of people to each person so that no one feels overwhelmed in sharing their information. As much as I want to make sure that this is a scalable model for people's yards, I want to make sure this is a scalable model for people's lives. You know, if you are out of work and you're home and you got a lot of time to field a bunch of questions, that's awesome. If you only have maybe 30, 45 minutes a day to help somebody out, that's fine too. But I think that it's a fun challenge to figure out how to make sure to just roll all this forward. It's like the logistics are really fun to think about. Like how do we get everybody all the things they need to move forward. And as far as the benefits of the mentorship, I mean, there's something about that human connection, and we touched on it a little bit earlier today, but I think that it'll help people keep on track. It'll help people get immediate feedback that they need. It'll help people feel a connection to the rest of the people in their community. And I think it will give people something else to look up on the internet and talk about, instead of the tragedy that is unfolding in front of us. It'll give people something else to focus on, which I think is what we really need right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we're onto something, and I appreciate you coming in here today and kind of helping spread the news and share your skill sets. I'm wondering if we're having any online questions, because I would love to shift maybe like what's been going on in your gardens right now. Maybe we get into some of the nitty gritties of like what's coming up timing wise for planting, and maybe some tips for people getting started or interested in this. Do you know if we're getting hit with any questions or comments currently, Sam?
No questions. Couple comments. Ben Dobbs says, "This weekend, my planting begins."
Yes.
Generva Pro Thero says, "Refreshing to see this. Great topics."
Awesome.
Ben Dobbs says, "Great work, Michael." And Jamaica says, "Good, amazing fundraising." And that's it.
Okay. Well, good. Then not a lot of naysayers here. We're just cruising on. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now in the garden. Gosh, what could people plant right now if they wanted to plant?
Well, right now what I've been focusing on is getting the last of my cold weather crops in the ground. You could still plant some peas and some cold weather things and get some fun results, especially if you're looking at things that are more slow bolting. There's certain lettuces and greens that will last longer than others in warm weather, and we are definitely moving into that. It's been a very strange, warm spring.
Warm and dry.
Warm and dry.
Yeah.
Warm, dry, and windy. But what I've been planting right now is I do a thing called succession planting. So I'll plant a certain set of veggies and I put it on my calendar. And then the next week, on the next Monday or 2 weeks after, I'll take those things that I planted and I plant them all again. So I'm on kind of my last session of succession planting for spring crops, and that includes kale, broccoli, greens, Brussels sprouts, chard, carrots, beets, radishes, turnips. Am I missing anything?
You're hitting the cold hardies. I mean, spinach, lettuce.
Oh, spinach. Yeah,
spinach is good.
Yeah.
Great. And then, okay, I've got one from Chris.
What are you doing for the frost tonight?
What are you doing for the frost tonight? So, I personally, and maybe I'll get schooled here, I'm not too worried about my cold hardy sprouts that are coming up. Like I've got a nice bed of little onions and spinach and radish and lettuce and peas that are coming up, and I think they're just going to be just fine and dandy. They can handle a little bit of a shock. But for people that got ahead of themselves and their peppers and tomatoes and stuff that might be going in a hair early, what would you say about that?
Well, I also am not worried about my cold weather stuff. A lot of something that people don't know, that the cold weather actually makes your cold weather crops more delicious. Whenever it gets cold, the plants create a sugary resin to protect themselves, and so all of those sugars make your spinach sweet. And so you want them to have a little kiss of frost. But as far as peppers and tomatoes and things like that going, if you got a little hasty and planted those, you're still going to be okay. What I would recommend is, if you can, mulch around it. So that you've got a nice barrier, and then there's a few things you can do. You can either make a tent out of a plastic bottle or a milk jug, just cut the bottom out of it and put it on top, then you've made yourself your own little greenhouse. It kind of depends on how big your plants are and the space that you have, and the materials you have available to you. You can get some sticks and take some painter's plastic or any sort of plastic bags or anything that you have and just wrap it over it. Just what you're trying to do is just create a little bubble where the frost isn't going to settle on your plants. then it's not gonna be cold enough tonight to freeze the ground, I don't think. So I mean, not hard freeze the ground. So I think that it's just going to be a quick frost, and then we'll probably be okay. But yeah, just give them a little tent, whatever you have available to you. But when it gets warm and sunny in the morning, make sure you take that stuff off. Because one thing that people accidentally do is tent their things at night and then forget to take it off in the morning and then end up cooking them. That's a thing that you can do in the spring where it's like too cold at night and too warm during the day. So you really have to kind of watch what you're doing.
Great. Something else that came to mind I want to share is like I've been watching as some people are like some of their favorite seed stores online might be backlogged, and then they freak out and assume there's no seeds anywhere. But then you like wander into Smith's and you see a full seed stack thing, or you know that IFA or Steve Reagan's got them, or there's so many people with seed libraries too, people that have been saving seed for a long time, and I feel like something I want to encourage people is to not freak out as they're getting involved in this. Like there's so much that can be done to prepare the way for a garden bed, to start composting, and to start organizing around this. And I think the seeds and the starts and the supplies will come, and maybe sometimes certain places will be out for a couple of days and other places will have it, but like this is not, as much as I'd love to think that like every American's just going to jump on board and start growing food, fat chance, right? So we're actually at the head of the curve with all of this, and I think it's great to start really getting involved. Both you and I have used a similar resource. I think as Allie Wicks has a yeah, she's been helping get horse manure to people. I know she still has a ton that's aged and good for gardens. How's it been using that resource? Any other tips for like maybe resource gathering?
Oh man, it's been great. She brought over a huge trailer to the New Hope Center, and it was about 60 cubic yards, and we went through almost all of it already. We probably need some more, but there are definitely resources out there. One thing we've been doing is stopping all the arborists, because everyone's getting their trees trimmed in the neighborhood right now. So anytime we see a tree company cutting something down, we go up and ask them if they'll just drop it in our yard or drop it over the parking lot across the street from us. And that's been an invaluable resource, either asking them to chip it for you or just having those sticks and logs. We've been building something called hugelkultur mounds in our yard, where you put a lot of logs and sticks and rotting things underneath the soil to build it up so you have more growing space, but also so that you have some nutrients breaking down in them and building soil. It's a German technique. Talking to the farmers that you know, talking to the people that you know that own livestock and bunnies and chickens and all sorts of things, and seeing if you can get your hands on some free manures or some free mulch. It's out there. It's online. There's a lot of people on KSL that are giving away fill dirt or compost or all sorts of things. But it's buyer beware on some of those things. You have to be careful when you're getting manures. You want to make sure that it's coming from an organic source. You want to make sure that people aren't using dewormers or any sort of nasty chemicals with their animals, which some people do, but you don't really want to put that in your food source.
And also you want aged manure for the horse especially.
Yep, for sure. Too hot.
Yep. Yeah, I think we can get through this. There's a lot of solutions on their way. Chase Reed is stoked about Allie's compost as well. Pete's in the middle of covering his potatoes. All right, we got a resilient community doing some awesome stuff. I love it. Community, we would really love your support. This is an initiative. To me, rather than some structured top-down thing, it's an initiative. It's an all-hands-on-deck sort of experience where those that know the value of this are able to bring their gifts to the table. And as a starting off point, there is the Neighborhood Resiliency Initiative, is a Facebook group on Facebook, and we've had it for a couple of weeks. There's about 150 people, and I would like to see by the end of the week, I'd love to see 1,000 plus as people really start to come in, ask their questions, start posting resources, and then behind the scenes, what we're doing as a steering council is we're trying to collect as many free resources and educational how-tos, and getting those in a spot where mentors will have kind of this drop point of handy, useful materials that they can give to people and hopefully make that experience a little easier. And then we're also working with a campaign system that allows people to sign up for the Neighborhood Resiliency Initiative and decide which or all of the 5 ways they want to participate. Do they have land to garden? Do they want to help? Can they contribute resources? Can they actually be in the garden? Can they educate to help in this process? And then it'll all be kind of automated to where if you want to help, you can then list your schedule and be able to pair up with people in your neighborhood. A big part of this is the neighborhood function, right? The more that we can localize, the more that we can be within walking distance of these projects, the longer these ties are going to hold and the more effective they're going to be for our community. And so localization is a big priority of this as well. And I guess that would be my ask tonight, is to get involved in that group and watch over the next 2-3 days as we finish up some of these extra tools so that we can really just get people connected to those that want to garden and opportunities in their neighborhood. I think that's what it's all about. And I'm also dreaming, don't want to dream too big, but I think that if enough people on this get involved, we're experiencing an actual transition in our economy right now where so many jobs that people have had, it might take a long time to normalize that economy again. And we really should be calling louder and louder with more and more of us for financial and organizational support, even from the top down once in a while, please, to fund people and to really take this as a priority as a society. And I think that this is one of those mechanisms where we can help do that. We have Angie Thompson saying, "Hi Permies. I'm wondering what resources you recommend to learn proper fruit tree pruning and if it is still a good time of year to do it." Gosh, I'm seeing a lot of blossoms up. Those trees are getting a little bit happy. What do you think, Barbarella?
I don't know. I don't know much about fruit trees, honestly. I'm just barely getting into that myself. So I would also be asking that question of you, Michael.
Well, for me, I've been taught that trying to get it before the blossoms are really coming out is good, because then the tree's still really asleep and it's like, you know, a little pinch while you're dreaming is not such a big deal. But when they're kind of like starting to flesh out for the summer and for the spring, I've heard that's not the best time to start hacking at them. I would think that for fruit tree pruning, gosh, I want to start like talking about everything I've learned about it, but there's also a lot of really great, you know, books and resources out there. The Holistic Orchard is an excellent permaculture-oriented fruit tree book that's powerful. I would say if you can, try to leave them kind of alone at this point and plan on a harder pruning in the fall. There's also some variations between different fruit trees and you can get super connected with it. There's also people that say never trim your trees and just let them naturally do their thing and you'll get a lot of abundance too. So I lean in the middle. I did do some pruning at our orchard at the Krishna Food Forest and Farm, but I did it about 3 weeks ago when they still were kind of dormant. So that's kind of where I would say. Cool. Well, I appreciate everybody getting involved. Let's post the link to the group in here so that people can start diving in on that. And you know, we do need help. We need your brilliance. There's going to be a lot of adaptation as we figure out the best way to be decentralized and help each other. I'm really grateful to share such a reflective and storytelling version of this live stream, as well as like an organizational one. Like, let's just get involved. It's Monday night. What else are we doing, right? Do you have anything else that's coming up that's alive in you? Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say, just bring up is the worksheet that we're putting out, the flyer that we're going to put out. I don't think you've mentioned much about that.
I haven't. You're right. Okay, please shoot.
Oh, okay. We're creating. It should go live in the next few days. Let's just say by the end of the week, we're going to be putting out a flyer that's printable that you can go ahead and put on your neighbor's door or their gate. I think I'm going to put a post up in my front yard with it, actually. I'm just going to put up a big sign that's basically introducing yourself. Hi, my name is Barbara. I live in this neighborhood and I want to invite you to the Neighborhood Resiliency Initiative, and these are the ways that you can get involved and see what we can chum up. I think it's going to be a cool way to connect neighborhoods and connect people right now.
Yeah, thank you for reminding that. I think that's a huge one. We were first pretty inspired by the Salt Lake City Mayor Mendenhall, who put out a Hello Neighbor printable door sheet for those that are concerned about their elderly neighbors or people that might need mutual aid. And I think that Sam's bringing up the awesome calendar we mentioned earlier of men with guns and cigars, local heroes making silly awesome photos to raise money for those unemployed right now. So I had to smile and laugh for a second. But
yeah, put that link in the chat.
Put it in the chat. I love the physical nature of this flyer and this handout, because that is, you know, something that so many of us in this modern society, I think, are struggling with, is this growing sense of isolation and this growing sense of disconnection from our neighbors and from the landscape that's immediately around us. And I think that this is a great opportunity to meet our neighbors and to bring them around and see what's going on. And so this flyer is just like Barbarella said. I think wearing gloves when you do it, in case you got an especially paranoid neighbor, is a good idea. Go out there after having washed your hands and bring the flyer around. And maybe if you don't want to like force them into a conversation right at their door like a missionary, you could just put it on the doormat or on the gate, right? And then from there, like, we can also organize within our digital online communities with this kind of form sign up online version. But I think that organizers should really take that initiative and spread this around to their neighbors as well, so that we can really put that localization priority into effect. So thanks for bringing that up. Any other gems you've got in you that are itching to be discussed?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Get your hands in the dirt. That's about it.
Get your hands in the dirt.
Get your hands in the dirt, guys. It's time. It's time.
And you're on the west side, so New Hope Center is a great opportunity to connect if you're in the Rose Park and west side area. I'm in Mill Creek and also Cottonwood Heights. So Mill Creek I help organize with the Krishna Food Forest and Farm, where there's opportunities to get resources. We have some of Allie's compost right now. We have compost from the landfill. We have plenty of seeds that we can share, and there's a lot of hands-on opportunities to learn from us there. And then I also live in Cottonwood Heights with my wife, and we've got a community garden that's kind of sprouting up near our house that I'm going to be putting a lot of energy into in the Cottonwood Heights area. So if you're down there, or Sandy, Cottonwood Heights, whatever, you could reach out. We can start organizing, and grateful to have this outlet. Thank you for coming in.
Thank
Barbarella.
you.
And thank you again, Sam, for making us look all like professional and slick, and bringing the multicam and sanitizing beforehand and having our 6-foot distance. I love it. Appreciate you so much for doing this for us. I would say that if you're going to feel called to donate tonight because of the production quality of this, we should post the Venmo for Salton Studios, because this is not too costly for me or Barbarella, but Sam's bringing out all the good gear, and I think you should post it in there, Sam, in case people can donate. And we're just going to go from there. So thank you, everybody, and may the permaculture force be with you. And we'll join you again next week for a Monday night live stream with some other relevant topic to being in service to life. So thank you, everyone.